I wonder if you guys can see the slide.
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, I don't need to go back to the introduction. Yeah, my name is Ayodele. Just to recap a few things I'd said already. Been coding for a while. Currently the CTO at Qace Homes, senior engineer as well with Legatix. My current focus that has been, at least in the last 8, 9 months, really, has been trying to focus on building products, with AI assistance, and not just AI assistance alone. There's also the fact that, been focusing more on trying to see how much, intelligence we can introduce into products. That because, like I said, it's a new age. So, most products today would always have one AI feature or the other. And AI having the ability to facilitate, quite a number of processes makes it quite appealing to not just investors, but even, everyday customers to sort of look for a way to solve problems intelligently. How many of us use AI today, though? Can I get hands raised as well?
Almost everyone does. I do.
All right, great. So what kind of AI do we use? ChatGPT, um,
Gemini.
Gemini.
Gemini, Cloud,
Uh,
Okay, let's keep
um,
listing. Any other one?
mm,
Grok.
Grok,
Kimi.
Grok.
Yeah.
I
Kimi
forgot
is
it.
for video or sorry, is it Kimi? Oh, sorry. Kimi is from China, right? And it's
Yeah.
supposed to, yeah, okay, yeah. One of those China. Awesome. So who has attempted to use OpenClaw? I'm just curious.
Open
Nobody.
cloud.
OpenClaw, yeah. No
Yeah.
one.
Don't use that.
Yeah. I've
Uh,
seen it, but I'm not tried it.
okay. So you has anybody actually used OpenClaw? I really need to know for a fact first. One person. You're not scared that OpenClaw will steal your personal information. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Anyway, so today is going to be more like a practical session. So I think most people already have an idea of what AI is capable of doing, and but I wonder if you've ever thought about what's the history of AI and how do we come about this? So I don't want to bore you with too many technical jargons or too many details. Rather, I'll just tell you that AI, there is really not so much happening, right? But in 1949, there was a scientist, right, a mathematician called Alan Turing. Alan Turing he had something like what we're having right now, a conference, and then in that conference, he kind of meted an idea that, okay, shouldn't we even find out how intelligent machines can get, right? And so he came up with something called the Turing test. The idea of that test was that, you would have an interrogator. Somebody will sit down. It will be facing a screen, right? A computer algorithm will be written to generate answers to questions, right? And these questions will be answered with the idea to imitate or mimic a human intelligence response, right? So you also have another person who is in normal, like, I mean, sorry, no again saying that we are dealing with a person, a human being, right? The person will also provide answers to the same questions. The idea would be that the interrogator would take these two answers and try to figure out which one was generated by, I mean, how human or which one is by a human and which one is by a machine. And so that was the whole ideology around, the Turing test. And at the time, well, the human interrogator was able to determine some of the answers coming from, I mean, that was produced by machines against the ones for humans. Now, Turing's ideology was that in like 50 years' time, machines would become so good that they would produce answers that would be almost as good as a human, to the point that an interrogator may not be able to, at least there's a 70% chance that the interrogator will not be able to tell the difference between that and that of a human. And this was the idea that started betting artificial intelligence. So a lot of scientists started writing different papers. And if I was to go through the history lane, I think it wasn't until about 4 years after before it got the naming. That month, Dartmouth College, I think it got the name artificial intelligence. And then as time went by, the methods that was applied to sort of, you know, I think things started to change. I think some of the hallmarks of artificial intelligence, one came about in 2017, very recently actually, in 2017 when one of the scientists, I'm trying to remember what his name is now, he wrote a paper, right? Before that time, there used to be, and I tried not to, I didn't want to go into, technical, details, but before that time, there used to be a couple of methods or approaches to artificial intelligence. They would use things like LSTM, RNNs, but they all had their own limitations, right, to sort of predict patterns. And in 2017, which is when we had this biggest break with LLMs. They came up with there was a paper that one of the scientists wrote that just broke everything, like, and it's called Attention is All You Need. So he introduced this transformers model or transformers approach method where, AIs had the ability to do self-attention and basically also sort of, you know, parallelize multiple sequence of word pattern search. And that was where, that was what gave the birth to generative AI that we now call LLMs today, and, ChatGPT and the likes, Claude and all of that. And then their degree of accuracy started to improve with the amount of context they can actually keep and their ability to tokenize or to sort of determine the next word in the phrase. So that's typically it. But again, let me just give you like just so that we have a cadence for what we are discussing today. What is AI generally, right? I mean, we shouldn't be having introductions to AI without mentioning or discussing what that is, right? So to answer that, I have something on my slide that just says that AI is just basically a piece of software, right? And what does this software do, really? The software has the ability to sort of predict patterns or make autonomous decisions, right? So basically, what AI does is to say, um, so I'm seeing a lot of data right now. And from this data, I can assume that this is what's going to happen in the future. So basically, AI just predicts on the basis of the consistency across board within the patterns I mean, within the patterns that evolves in, say, a data set, right? Um, a typical example would be if you remember back in the day, I mean, I mean, I imagine all of us have gone through one tertiary institution or the other. And one thing you observe is that some lecturers are fond of repeating certain questions like every year or
Um,
typically, yeah, things like this happen where you can almost say that, I think what's lecturer, what this, I mean, if you have access to past questions, you can always, even if you did not, there are two ways you can prepare for an exam, basically, right? So the first thing is you could go through the entire course work, like read the whole course material, and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to, and usually that is always tedious, right? And very, very, yeah, it would take a lot from you to actually go through the entire course material. Or you could predict the lecturer and say, okay, here's the past question. In the last 20, 30, 40 years, this is what they've asked so far. And then you start looking for patterns within those questions. And then when you find a couple of questions that seem to come up every year, you can almost guarantee that, okay, without even going through this entire coursework, at least there's a guarantee that I'm getting 60 over 100 if I was to learn one or two or three of those questions. That's essentially how AI also works. So there is not so much AI also attempts to mimic, you know, human behavior or human intelligence, but instead of actually implementing like hardcore rules, so business rules, things like if you go here, you go here, you go here, or implementing a mathematical model, it just looks at the pattern. AI is a bit lazy, right? It just looks at the pattern in that particular, series of events and then predicts essentially what comes next on the basis of the most consistent patterns across that particular data set. So that's how AI works. Another example would be, um, in today's world, if for anybody who is familiar with metrology, there's a way that they predict weather, right? So they could predict as what's the chances of rain falling today, right? Now, for them to get to arrive at this, there's a lot of calculations that goes into it. So many mathematical models. They would have these mathematical models. They'll crunch the data, then apply all the. And again, the fact that you apply, so for you to calculate rainfall, for instance, there are so many factors. You look at the humidity, you look at the environment, you sometimes even seismic data, right? You bring all of this together, then you apply all the mathematical models for, analyzing rainfall. At the end of the day, there's always a chance that it might not be 100% accurate, right? However, you could use an ML or a machine learning, what's it called, metrology model that will just look at, oh yeah, this is Lagos, this is Nigeria, right? Can you give me all the data of when rain actually fell in the last 200 years? And on the basis of that, it can crunch that data and then say, okay, there's a very good chance that rain is going to fall tomorrow. And most often than not, because our seasons are, with the exception of this year, that is a slightly, unconventional, our seasons are usually, relatively constant for rainfall and things like this. So it will most likely, with a very good degree of accuracy, predict when next rain is going to fall without any like, statistically heavy calculations, right? So that's one of the best ways I can explain, how AI works. Now, AI has these are boring parts, just so bear with me. AI has a bit of multiple sort of approaches to it, right? And the first and I think the most successful approach is the machine learning approach, right? And machine learning gained some gravitas, like we started getting gravitas in around like 2012. I mean, no, from the 2000s, sharp, like 2012, from 2008 to 2012, some models became popular, like the LSTM models and the RNN models. Then we would also see some successes in natural language processing, right? And so, and one thing that, let me not go into that detail. I think rather what's important is to notice that today, what you currently have in this amazing, ChatGPT, Claude, and the likes, Gemini, and the likes, is just a generative model, right? So we're talking about LLMs here. We still consider LLMs to be a form of weak AI, if that makes sense. So, an AI that is designed, and not just LLMs alone, typically all the artificial intelligence systems we have today are still considered weak AIs. And why do we consider them as weak AIs, right? We consider them as weak AIs because they are mostly expert at maybe one task or the other. LLMs now are very good with natural language processing, and they basically can understand and then predict the next word on the basis of maybe their training data or your prompts, right? Um, what's it called? Computer visions, they use like a combination of OCRs and other type of sort of technology to sort of determine, you know, read images, videos, or generate images and videos, things like this. And then you have other ones as well. But the point is that they are still quite limited in their capacity to sort of predict patterns or to make decisions. They are not completely without, they can, you with agentic workflow, you can create some form of automation around them, but they still rely on human intelligence and they're not above, they're not even as intelligent as humans, if you think about it really. But we would approach a world where we get to something called AGI, General Artificial Intelligence, Artificial General Intelligence, that would have the ability to make autonomous decisions and, um, outperform most of the artificial intelligence models we have today, right? It would probably not hallucinate as much as these ones are hallucinating, and then you get way better results. But we're not quite there yet, right? And just to say that what has really given AI this amount of success and this level of growth in such short period is because There are so many times in history, really, but one significant time must have been, on the back of the COVID-19, you know, internet came in the 2000, and then in I think 2020, if I'm correct, was it 2020 or 2019 where we had the COVID-19. A lot of people started to spend most of their time doing typically almost every day-to-day activity on the internet. We're able to sort of get a huge data set that allowed us to create all these very massive language models. In the future, we have way more language models that will make these ones small language models. Right now we call it LLM, right? But they are only trained on about 8 trillion, worth of tokens right now. So we have probably way bigger than this in tokens. I mean, in models trained with a lot more training data than what we currently have today. But yeah, so what I'm trying to say is whatever capacity you see today with the current LLM, you can expect way more capacity going forward in the future. So now let's talk about numbers. So in 2024, there was a survey done by GitHub, and they realized that as of 2024, that's 2 years ago, they already had like 92% of developers using AI. Now, I'm saying this to address a myth, right? I've met quite a few people in recent times who would say something like, AI is going to so there are two types of people. You find the ones that are concerned about the fact that AI would replace them. Then you find out some other people on the other side of the spectrum who would say, you know what? I want to write raw code. And that they're not going to depend on AI because they think that AI would actually, make them dumber, and maybe they're not 100% wrong, right? And some of them will say they feel like AI is going to make them a bit dumber, or AI is going to or they feel like their at end skill, the number of days or months or years they spent learning software will go for nothing if they stopped coding in code or stopped working manually without the use of AI in code. And I have this to say about this. The reality is this, right? AI will not replace anybody. Well, AI would, but what I'd like to tell you today that as much what we know about the current capacity of the tools that are at our disposal, especially with these very robust and successful LLMs, is that they wouldn't replace you today. At least that is for sure. They would not replace you in the next 5 years. That is for sure. One thing that would not change is problem solving, right? But how we solve problems would always evolve. And that's one thing to keep in mind. This is a constant, it's always been a constant across history. And I'll give you an instance. If you think about it, before we humans started to drive cars, right? We would travel on foot from one particular region to another. How would you like to travel on foot from Nigeria to the US today? Does it, if you did that, well, I mean, you're going to make the Guinness Book of Record or you become a spectacle. People will watch you online and then they probably live stream it and they're like, wow, this guy is making history. But it wasn't a huge deal, you know, moving from one place to the other by foot some, you know, eons ago, right? And so that's part of evolution. And the way that we'll do things will continue to change, right? There are so many examples. I just wanted to mention that. So it would be insane today to say you want to get from the mainland to the island and you're like, oh, you know what, let me just go on foot. It would look unusual. And so for people who are saying today that, well, they'd rather not use AI and just stick to their own human intelligence. But yeah, all well and good. It's just the point is you will look quite strange in the future. And by that time, the value, especially for those who are interested in making money, the thing is you're trekking from mainland to the island in the future will not be that valuable, right? Because there are way better ways of doing it. Like, right, I mean, what am I even saying? Trekking from them, if you had to come to work, right? And then you told your boss that, boss, sorry, I came late this morning. I had to trek from the mainland to the island. First thing's asking you is, why not use a locomotive like they have cars, right? Why did you not just go through? Why didn't you just enter into a car and then get to your destination. That's exactly the same thing. So AI is a tool, right? And it's a tool that has the ability to multiply your own effect and productivity, right? It is not going to take your place, but it's going to maximize your efficiency. So the question of whether or not you want to use it, there is so much investment today into artificial intelligence systems that for you to ignore it. As a matter of fact, it would for those who are able to use it today, they would be more attractive, to employers. To, in fact, in the next, I think it's already happening right now, but in the next few months, than those who are not, regardless of your years of experience. This is the great equalizer, really. And I'll tell you, from my own personal experience, I mean, I've been working for more than 8 years building software. And when I started building software, there were people, across the globe that I kind of relied on for knowledge. I would watch the likes of Brad Travers's videos on maybe things like TypeScript and JavaScript, right? I would watch Net Ninja. I would watch there's this guy Maximilian, right? And these guys are really top guns when it came to resource learn. I mean, when it came to learning, how to code or patterns in multiple frameworks and things like this. But surprisingly, today I find these same guys also grappling with the reality of how do they incorporate AI into their workflows. They are all coding today and they've stopped making, I mean, they're all coding with AI today, right? And I've stopped making video tutorials on, frameworks and things like this. And the question is, if those guys who are sort of gatekeepers in the industry, or, those guys that if they were able to pick up AI assisted programming or peer programming, how much more us? We're not better programmers than they are anyway, right? So the point I'm trying to make is AI is here already. So everybody has to adopt, AI, or you run the risk of not being as relevant as any other, I mean, as other people of your peer in the near future, and even so today, right? Then the last thing I'm going to say about this is that I understand the challenge that a lot of the engineers in Africa face. For a time, software engineering, whether it is QA, data science, uh, or the core software engineering, basically, I mean, IT roles generally has been something of a pride for Africans, not just Africa, I think Latin America as well, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is that it's I mean, like all these roles, when they started to evolve into skills that people were learning, it became a way that you could, you know, say earn way more than it kind of changed the societal standard. So before software, everybody was aspiring to either work in a bank or like work in an oil company and all of that, right? And there were very limited opportunities. You had to be connected and all of that. But an average person could, when software came on and came into the mainstream and became the big time, everybody, anybody could just pick up a course and then learn a programming language, learn a framework, and then, or you could pick up QA and learn basically, manual QA principles, right? And then before you know it, you are already in a job. You might even, if you're, I mean, a lot of Nigerians actually work foreign jobs, right? And they earn slightly above, the average market today. And you can lead a life that is very comfortable and convenient. A lot of the guys that we have today work remotely. They solve problems that are uncommon, and because that skill is rated very highly, it's a thing of a pride for them. So seeing that AI can do a lot of these things today makes them feel, a bit reluctant to support or to jump on the train. What I'll say to them is, trust me, I get it, but it's a battle that will never be won. You will never win that battle because the things continue to evolve. So if you find yourself in that spectrum, please evolve your thoughts, you know, get on the opportunity. Sort of, this is the only time in history where you actually have a chance to learn with the world. We're still all grappling, like globally, there is not that much. There's not, you don't find so many people who is at a very high level, so advanced in their knowledge of AI than the average person, especially for people who are willing to expose themselves right now to the technology. So this is the time in history, the first time in history where you can compete fairly against someone in the US for the knowledge of, how to make use of these tools. So please, if you, it's a huge opportunity. You don't want to be falling by the wayside. So yeah, so let's talk about this is going to be very fast because I wanted to make sure that we could focus more on theories, I mean on practice today than theory. So I just want to go through, a couple of what AI would mean for developers. So a couple of things that you can use AI for. One basic thing you can use AI for is code generation and peer programming. So with tools like Copilot is very good at autocompletes, right? So you can basically, if you're typing out something on your code editor, Copilot can easily pick that up and then, you know, um, it can pick that up and predict what the next line of code is and then autocomplete it for you. So it's a form of peer programming. Also, for peer programming, one tool that is very, robust, or rather, I would say an LLM that I know that is built around the ideology of peer programming is Codex. So Codex is owned by ChatGPT, I mean the OpenAI company, right? And the ideology around programming is to ensure that the engineer who is coding, right, has the ability to directly interact with the model as a session as session is ongoing. So basically, the advantage of that is that you can feel more immersed and involved in the entire process, right? But Claude is ideologically different. Claude would rather you sort of prompt it with all the things that you want to do. Then to go ahead and depending on, what model you're using and what version of Claude you're using, it might now spin up like a couple of parallel tasks, break it down into phases, have multiple, agents run on different aspects of that particular implementation, and then coordinate the responses to you so you can see and review it. So depending on, your own approach, you can either use maybe Claude or you use Codex or anything you want to use. But also there are other tools like, I mean, Cursor, right? Windsurf, Cursor, open code. These are like, with the exception of open code, that is, I think open code is, what's it called now? Command line based, similar to how Claude code can also be used in the command line, right? Cursor and Windsurf are IDE based, so they give you something that looks very similar to Visual Studio Code, for instance, and then just so that it doesn't take you out of your comfort zone, because most engineers have often found comfort in using IDEs, over the years. So you're there, you can see what you're building. You can also see the code as it is being generated. You can modify it very easily, and also still continue to interact in a conversational manner with your AI model. So that's basically it. But all the things you can do would include debugging. There is no gainsaying that you can easily debug. You can also review, your code implementation, ask AI to sort of explain to you, or at least maybe point out different ways that that particular implementation could have been written differently, like to skill and things like this. So there are, depending on the use case, you'll find a lot of opportunities there. Another thing you can use AI for is for documentation. So there are some mundane tasks like writing out all the maybe for a backend code, for instance, now you have a lot of APIs that you want to write. I mean, that you've written, or API endpoints you've written, and you don't have a documentation for it. So instead of going to Postman and documenting the entire thing, you can just basically ask AI to do that for you. And it can be a repetitive task that whenever you're done, writing a particular, I mean, an endpoint, the AI just adds the documentation, maybe via a custom command that you've added. So there are a couple other things that you can do with it, but these are just a few examples. For us at Qace Homes, we've, immersed ourselves in using AI as, I mean, as being an AI first company. So basically, all the applications we've built so far has been built. I mean, all the applications we're building rather are AI centric, both in their nature, in the way that they behave, but not just that as well. We've also made sure that, we are essentially building with with AI assistance. So that's something I wanted to mention. For QA engineers, test case generation, what else again? Exploratory testing. Some of the things that would you see some of the things that we're able to do today. Um, you can use it um for writing your test plan for anything content. LLMs are very good at generating content. So think of anything you do at all today that has to do with writing natural language. AI can also can would definitely find a very good use case for you find a good use case for AI in those areas, right? If you want to write automated testing as well, so don't think that AI is limited and may not be able to help you with that because if it can write code, it can actually generate automated tests too. So for bug triage, how many of us are aware, or familiar at least with bug triage? The idea around bug triage is to look at a set of bugs that's been created on, let's say, a bug tracking software, right? And say, okay, we're looking at this and we're on the basis of how this is designed, we can, you know, specify what's the priority or the severity of this particular bug. With AI, instead of going through maybe 1,000, bug tickets and then manually specifying all of this, maybe with a simple command, maybe you can have an MCP, right, connected to your LLM, for instance, or the model you're working with. And then the model goes on maybe a place like Jira, reads all the bugs. Whilst you guys are currently in your session, you read all the bugs and then assign, a priority or a priority rating or what's it called, a severity rating to each of those bug tickets. So that can be done. So a task that would ordinarily take you a long time might take you a shorter time to complete because you're using AI. Again, like there are other things like test data. You know how sometimes it's quite difficult to come up with with the next test data. Maybe you overused, what's it called? Something like, maybe for names now, you have something like, what's this popular thing we use? John Doe or Jane Doe, things like this. You can always find AI can easily generate payloads for you without having to, without you having to come up with the next test data you need. So, but again, how exactly do you prompt? So this is a very interesting topic because, people often you find people to on a particular part of the spectrum that says, I often find out AI doesn't give me good results. Well, one thing I'll tell you is that your result is only as good as your prompt. So if you give, um, I don't want to use some kind of words, but if you give a bad prompt to the AI, yeah, it will also give you an equally bad um, response, right? And so one of the ways that I found that is best to actually prompt is to use this framework called CTF. So what does CTF actually mean? The first thing you want to with artificial intelligence models, especially LLMs, the ones that we use today, right? Context is everything. So the AI is unable to produce good results without understanding what it needs to work on, right? Or whose role it needs to assume to work on that particular task, right? Because if you say something like, can you tell me about this application? And just an AI, can you tell me about Google? The AI doesn't really know who is asking. Are you asking from a technical context? Do you want a technical run through of how Google works? Or do you want me to just explain what Google does, from a layman's understanding? So if you wanted to understand Google from a technical context, the AI might actually tell you what Google is as a layman should understand it, right? So you want to be able to provide context, and context should include, first of all, what personality, the AI has to assume, and what exactly would the AI be working on, right? Then the other thing again is you need to be very specific about what task to carry out or what task the AI has to carry out, right? And then in which format the output should come. So there is a chance that maybe you want to use, for developers, you may want to generate maybe some kind of JSON data that would then be useful for, a couple of use cases, right? The AI doesn't know this unless you tell it that, okay, this is the format that you want it to generate your data with. So these are some of the important things. You need to always tell the AI, if you want structured data, you tell the AI, okay, this is the structure with which I want my data to look. If you want, in fact, instead of saying this, let's do some experiments, right? Um, Let me see if I can just show you. So I had Cloud Code opened up here. All right, so let's try a few things. So I'm going to copy. Can you see my? I'm just hoping you can see my Cloud session right now. So let me copy a bad prompt. Let's just try a few things together. So that because I feel like I've been talking and I'm not sure. I want to make sure that I'm engaging everyone on the call. So I'm going to try a bad prompt. 1 second.
Sorry, please, what tool is this? Sorry to interrupt.
What?
What tool is this?
What throne? I didn't quite hear you.
Tool,
Can you? So,
tool,
oh, this
tool,
is
tool.
Claude. This is Claude. Claude, Claude,
Oh, okay, thank you,
Claude.
thank you, thank you.
All right, no problem. All right, so I'm going to let's try a bad prompt. Let's try something like tell me, okay, write a test case for me. Let's just do something like this. So Claude would, but let me not preempt the results. Let's see what it comes up with. By the way, Opus is actually very smart. So Opus is going to ask a few questions. So that it can sort of create that context that is missing. So it says, I'll be happy to help write a login test case. Let me clarify a few things so I can tailor it to your stack. This will help me write test cases that fit right into your project. Let me know your choices and I will get it built out. You know what it is doing here? It doesn't know whether you're asking these test cases for unit testing in sort of a white box scenario, right? And what do I mean by this? Developers write test cases as much as QA engineers also write test cases, right? But their test cases vary and they vary, by platform, they vary by where the test to be and things like this, right? So in this case, based on the conversations I've had in the past with Claude is able to determine that this guy actually writes Next.js, Python, a couple other things. But and this is still some kind of context, but imagine a scenario where there isn't even any understanding of the user, right? It then begins to grapple with, okay, what are the different types of things that you want to kind of build some type of context before it can actually proceed with solving that problem. Now, you see, it's asking me what type of test are we talking about? Is it unit test? Is it integration? Is it end to end? You know, is it yeah. So it's asking me for all these options. It's asking me what's the authentication method here? Is it JWT session based or API key based and things like this, right? Now, imagine, so basically what is missing and why it's asking all these questions is because it is missing largely context in this case, right? Now, let me try another prompt. I think I wrote something somewhere. Just give me a second to find that. And so we can attempt to, you know, we can attempt to give it something of its specification and see how well it does with that, right? Okay, yeah, I have one here. So I have one here that I'm going to copy and paste into this and tell it to ignore first prompt. So this one, let me just quickly run through it. So it says, I'm a QA engineer. So now this is the personality I was referring to here, right? Second. I was telling you that you have to specify, um, who is actually, whom the AI is supposed to imitate, right? What's the personality that is asking for a particular task to be completed? And then what the person is actually working on. So that's basically one very huge aspect of the context. So this is seen here that as a QA engineer, so I'm a QA engineer, you know, sorry, the wordings are a bit wrong here, but I'm a QA engineer basically testing user registration feature for a property management web app, right? Registration form has these fields. So you're basically specifying what fields the registration form has. Now, this is where the task is. So you're saying generate a comprehensive test plan with test cases covering, the happy path scenario, boundary value testing, negative testing, security, and so on and so forth. Now, remember I also spoke about formats for response, right? So let's assume that we actually prompted the AI to use just this content alone to generate this test. It will, of course, generate the test cases. It will generate the test plan. The only difference is that it would not generate it according to this format. But this format says that it should use a table format, specifying, providing, rows to each of this, that has values in each of these columns. So the test ID, category, description, and so on and so forth, right? So following this format here, where you provided context into who the AI should be, and then, what the AI is about to do, or what the system the AI is testing is about. Then here you've provided the task, and here you provided the format. Now let's see what the result will look like. One thing that I should mention is that AI is slightly slow. So, keep that in mind when you work with AI, all right? AI is slightly slow. And I will try to walk through another scenario that would cover the experience of a developer, because I imagine that we have some developers on the call as well. As a matter of, I think what I'll do is I will just start that. So let's say I wanted to show a scenario where AI can actually fix bugs for you, right? So I'm going to copy a code snippet, and paste it here so that we can look at it together. I'll use ChatGPT for this one so that we can. It's also a good thing to do to experiment which is faster than which. I know the answer, but anyway, let me show you this first. Okay, so for those of us that is familiar with, let me paste this first, and then so we can read this. I wouldn't scroll to the answers just yet. So if you're familiar with Node.js, what do you think is the problem with this code? Anybody? So well, let me not bore us with this, but I would just say for developers, right? For anybody who's familiar with Node.js, who writes Node.js, the first thing you notice here is that we have a bit of a dependency injection issue here, right? So anybody can pass, sorry, I said dependency, sorry, SQL injection risks here, right? Because what this line suggests that the user is concatenating, this SQL query here with the value and this value is basically coming from the request body, right? So you can see that happening here. Now, the risk is that someone can pass instead of, because this is a field that is not validated and it's not sanitized at all. So instead of an email in this case, the only thing that this person is checking is whether the value is provided or the field is provided or not. Someone could have written something like drop tenant table here, or drop maybe um, a user's table, or drop account table. The person can attempt to drop a table here, and if the person writes this query properly, right, what's going to happen here is that the SQL would run, and then I can pass, maybe it will pass this here. And once it puts a delimiter, like a column at the end of this, and then write something like drop tenant table, the SQL also executes by dropping that table there, right? So that's something that is very risky. And in fact, this is extremely, extremely risky. It's prone to attack as it is right now. There are also other issues, but this is the first I was able to know. Okay, yeah, parameterization. This is not parameterized as well, so that is not right. Right. But as a human, what I'm just trying to say is that there's a possibility that I might not cover all the scenarios whilst reviewing this code. The good thing about AI is a bit more efficient than I am. So there's a good chance that it will cover, especially if the code is a lot. This is very, very, very short snippets. So it's easy for me to say, okay, these are some of the issues. But if we are working with maybe 1,000 lines of code, it might be more difficult for me as I go through it to pick the issues very fast. But if you look at this would go through every single instance of a potential error and then solve it. Like it has spotted that SQL injection vulnerability, you know. So is showing you an example of, what could possibly go wrong, as you can see on this line, right? And it's suggesting using parameterized queries instead. Then it also notices that the routes are not, it's a bit of an anti-pattern to write the routes in the way it was written here. And so on. So you find a lot of things. It's talking about risk conditions here where people might attempt to create the same user at the same time. Um, I'm sure that is saying that because yeah, there isn't any unique, checks to figure out whether or not that email has been used before. So you have all these things going on, right? And I think the most important thing is to say that you would find AI very useful with code reviews, with, corrections and things like this, especially when you're coding. So, it also would take up a personality, as you can see, senior level improvements, telling you all the things that you can do to sort of make it better. And that's one to keep in mind. Let's go back to our QA scenario. Can you see this? Let's see if I can expand my view a bit. So it's generated, see how much test cases that's generated for us. And these are the happy parts, And can you see this? So this is something that will probably take you maybe 30 minutes to generate, but then this guy will do it in a few minutes. So that's something to keep in mind. We'd also play around other examples, but I wanted to really show us that one. So you can see the efficiency of the AI when you provide very good prompts, right? So I'm going to touch on this. I want to see how many slides I still have left because I feel like we've spoken for too long. Okay, let's just talk about MCPs very briefly. How many of us are familiar with the term MCP? Any hands first? Okay. So I'm going to explain as in a simple way, as simple as possible. An MCP is, well, the full meaning of the acronym is Model Context Protocol. But you can think of it as a piece of sort of protocol that makes it easy for AIs to connect to external tools, right? So it's basically empowering the AI to be able to make, take certain actions within tools or query for more information and things like this. It's like saying that before MCPs, people had to write a lot of custom integrations. There wasn't any particular standard to creating all those custom integrations. But you want your AI to be able to perform multiple things and you want to make it more efficient. I mean, if the AI can predict correctly, why can't it help you to perform certain actions, right? So that's it was Anthropic. Anthropic were part of the sort of founding. They didn't quite create MCPs as people always often say that they did, but they were part of Anthropic. They are the owners of Claude. Were part of the companies that actually standardized MCPs, right? So today, MCPs can allow you to connect easily to typically almost any application that has an MCP, like your Gmail, for instance, a database, and MongoDB has MCPs, what's it called now? Postgre also has MCPs. You have GitHub with MCPs. There are quite a number of MCPs out there. And this MCP allows you to be able to easily connect. It's like connecting your Claude Code or your ChatGPT to typically tools that you use on a day-to-day, right? Making you a bit more efficient, providing more context for the API and things like this. There's also other things, but I don't want to go into those ones. I'll be more detailed, right? But what you should keep in mind is that MCPs are actually like connectors. They just help you to establish a connection between an existing tool and your AI, allowing you to be able to make modifications within that tool, also have that to carry out some real life tasks for you. So I'll show you an example that I have a few MCPs connected here. But before I get into that, I want to see if there's any other thing on this slide that I haven't covered. Okay, so some of the useful MCPs that you find, today most of us will be familiar with Jira, Linear, Asana, ClickUp, and things like that. They are project management tools, right? Some of these tools already have MCPs. So let's say you have a task that you want to work on. Instead of going into that to copying that task into your AI to prompt it, you can basically, connect to that to maybe Asana or Jira using the MCP, their MCP server, right? And then you can pull your ticket directly into your coding interface, and then ask the AI just to pull the ticket and then basically work on it. For development, you can create, you can connect to the maybe GitHub or GitLab's MCP to maybe create, pull request, create pull requests. You can push, you can pull, you can basically manage tickets, you can manage branches and things like this, access to repositories and things like this using the GitHub MCP. Figma as well, you can pull designs into your code. You can ask, the AI to design, user interfaces depending on certain designs on Figma, right? Postgre allows you, Postgre, MongoDB, a couple other ones have MCPs that allow you to be able to easily, tell the AI to look into the database for data, regarding whatever it is that you're working on. With QA, this is one of the most interesting, perhaps the most interesting parts, really, because I think the most fascinating one for me is the Playwright's MCP, right? Playwright has like two MCPs. They have the general playwright MCP that allows you to easily navigate through and explore a particular browser. And I think that's what we're going to work on that today. And I think that's going to be the final part of this session. Then they have another MCP for writing tests too, right? And so we have quite a number of these MCPs, and it's quite easy to add them. So if you use Claude, for instance, now, like this is the online Claude. Let me just go back to, let me just go into a new conversation so we see. Uh, let me create a new chat. So I just wanted to show you what the MCP or the connectors on this looks like. So if you wanted to connect, so I have three MCPs connected to this right now. So I can basically tell it to go and read my mail. I could just say fetch me. So let's see if it's going to be able to do this. Right. And this is basically one of the easy use cases, right? So you can also tell it to compose a meal. You can tell it to do a couple
Want
of things
to
and
give
do that.
somebody with support. Let's give her the truth.
Say that again.
The person now that is doing something that's doing meaning, just put to bed. Don't give her the truth, because do that one.
Okay. So that's not for us then. So basically, this is my last meal, right?
Hmm?
So it says your most recent mail is a
Yeah.
promotional mail,
Give her
message
the truth.
from demo, receipts
It's not
today,
mine, it's for your
right?
auntie. Go and give her.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to mute you. Who is the person speaking? 1 second. Okay, I guess we don't need to mute that person again. So the point I'm trying to make here is, I don't know if you can still see this. So it was able to fetch my most recent mail, right? Let's say I wanted to reply these folks, the last person who sent me this mail, I'll be able to reply them from this place. But I will skip that so that I can show you other things. So I wonder if anyone is familiar with working with Cloud Code on the terminal, basically. So I'm going to show you two things, right? So let me see if there's anything left on the slide before we proceed to this session. So yeah, this is context. I'm not going to be talking about this one. I don't think there's any need for this. So yeah, let's just see AI in action. This is where we are now. But I'm going to skip. I'll just do all of this in one so that in the interest of time, because I think we've overshot time for this session. So let me just walk you through a few, use cases that we can use AI for. So the first thing is, are we familiar with working within a terminal? I know that's something that a lot of people shy away from. Anyway, if you would ever code or you ever do anything, programming, you need to familiarize yourself with the terminal. However, I'll spin this out. I don't know, how about Visual Studio Code? I imagine that we must be familiar at least with Visual Studio Code, right? Or any other IDE for that matter. So it doesn't have to be Visual Studio Code. It could be any other IDE. So I'm going to bring one into the fore. I need to make sure I'm opening a new session. Close this, close this, close this. All right. So let me quickly show you a few things. So let's say I want to start up Cloud Code on here. Can you guys see my screen? I'm just wondering.
Yes, you can.
Okay, great. So this is going to be very fast. I'm creating a new project called QA demo. And I just want to show us how to use Cloud Code within, for a project, for instance, within our terminal, or let's say within Visual Studio. Let me
Sir,
spin
you
up
are still
another.
on page.
Where am I? Sorry.
Let's
Oh,
see AI in action.
oh, I see him. I'm so sorry. I thought that was okay. Let's see. How about now? Can you see my terminal now? Oh, it's still not sharing. I see what's going on. Just give me a second. I have to reshare. I have to reshare my screen. Okay. So just permit me to, I think I will need to share the entire thing. I don't know why. Okay, I think I can see that now. Can you see my terminal now?
Yeah.
Okay, great, 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 great. All right. So so it means that I must have skipped a few steps. So this is basically Cloud Code. I wonder if we're familiar with Cloud Code
No,
in the
I'm
terminal.
not saying
Okay.
anything.
All right. The best way to explain it is to say that you know how we have this interface here on here.
Sorry, please. Sorry, please. I'm only seeing your desktop. I can't see
Only
terminal.
your desktop you are
Please.
seeing.
Oh, okay. Give me 1 second. I'm wondering why that is. Let me try to share again. Okay, let's try this. Let's see. Are you still seeing only my desktop? What can
Okay,
you
yeah,
see?
we are good now.
Okay, so you can see my terminal right now, right?
Yeah, we can see the terminal right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, just give me 1 second. So I want to open another window. I think this will be better. All right. So this is rather going to be quite interesting. So we're going to try a few things together. So how did I get to this point? So before I go very far, first question is, are we familiar with Cloud Code though? How familiar are we with working with Cloud Code from the terminal? If we are not, I would stick to using the ID, although I'll just tell us a few things about how this terminal works. It's quite easy to work with. But okay, I will have to assume, let me assume that we're not that familiar or used to working in inside of a terminal. Well, with Cloud Code has a CLI, something called a command line interface. And this is where we are right now. And this interface basically makes it very easy for you to transverse, some functionalities within Claude. However, for those of us that is familiar with IDEs, one of the most popular IDE, Visual Studio Code, makes it also easy as well with extensions to actually utilize Cloud Code, And why this is important for us on this call is that no matter how we try to stay away from these things, one way or the other, we will need to interact with them at some point. So we need to start getting familiar with, um, what's it called? Integrated development environments like Visual Studio Code, or at least Claude's CLI tool like this one, because that's where all of our, code is basically going to go. We don't need to be very tough or like very skilled programmers, rather, to be able to use Visual Studio. Visual Studio is just basically an exploration environment where you just explore files. Explore that thing, right? So the first thing I like us to do is to just experiment, really. Right, let's experiment. So let's first start by let's see what MCPs are, right? And I don't know if that's the best way to start this experimentation, but yeah, let's just start anyhow. Let me close this particulars. I don't need this. So let's start with MCPs, right? So the first thing is we're in a new project right now. So as you can see, that project has no file in it, right? So we want to use this project to, let's say let's open a website together. So I'm going to open this website called, it's not live, but I mean, it's live, but it's not in use right now. So the first thing is, let's say because we have more QA engineers on the call. Let's say you get onboarded on a project like this. The project is called Trade Safe, right? And this project, and you're asked that, okay, come up with a test plan for Trade Safe. Let's see, like, would you be able to, but we'd like you to test Trade Safe, right? But for you to test it, you have to come up with a test plan and then come up with test scripts or test suits containing test cases and things like this, right? So the first thing you probably want to do, assuming that there is nobody to provide you a concrete walkthrough, or there is no documentation, you first of all carry out exploratory testing, right? So you explore the entire system to see how it works. You go through the landing page, you look at everything there. Then you look at if it has a login, if it has an authentication flow, you look at the authentication flow, you try to log in, you try to look around, right, to see what it does and all of that stuff, right? So that's what you typically do before you can come up with the what's it called? The test cases and your test artifacts basically. So the test plan and then the test cases, right? Now let's let's see how we would do this with an AI. The first thing I'll do is to include or to add Playwright's MCP. But before I go that far, let me just quickly show what Playwright MCP is. So now I'm going to ask a question. What is Playwright MCP server? So the AI mode should be able to at least give us an answer. So basically, what this does is that it just, connects Playwright's what's it called, automation capabilities to your AI, allowing it to be able to easily explore um an application, whether it is a web application, through the browser, as long as you can open it on the browser, transverse multiple pages and then basically give you some actionable things. And like I said, AI is more, robust when it has the ability to utilize tools. So these tool calling abilities only come not just through MCPs alone. You can basically just integrate an API directly, but MCPs make it very easy for AIs to do tool calling, basically. And on the basis of this, so many companies, right, already built now have MCPs that allow you to easily connect your AI to their services, right? So let's quickly explore this real quick so that we don't have to speak too much about. Now I'm going to copy this URL here. Before that, I will check if we have the playwright MCP here. So we don't have the playwright MCP installed here. Let me just quickly add that so that we can move very fast. There are multiple ways to add MCPs, but this is also one way. So you can create an MCP.json file. You can also ask the AI to add MCPs for you. That is also possible, right? But you can also do it this way. And as a matter of fact, let me ask it. Let's see how well it's do here.
Hello, sir. I don't know, maybe because the fonts look so tiny, I can't
Oh,
see.
sorry about that. All right. Let me see if I can increase this font. How about now? Can you see the fonts now?
Yeah, better a little bit.
Okay. Let me see if I can expand it a bit more so you can. I just zoomed in again. I wonder if you can see it.
Makes sense now.
Okay. So I wanted you guys to also see the fact that it is, it's natural language. So it's basically communicating the actions that it is performing to me, right? So you see that it says here that the file is completely empty. So you found that .mcp.json file that I created, and it's now adding Playwright's MCP server into it. So what is done here, you can also find it online and basically just do it yourself. Do it manually yourself. But that's the beauty of AI. You don't have to do manual stuff if AI can just do it for you, isn't it? So now it's done adding that MCP. So if you look at this, adding an MCP it's not a big deal. You just add the argument, to call the server, and that is it. It is done. So, but I think what will interest us more is to see the MCP in action. But before we get to that stage, I want to show us an interesting thing here. So I could say, uh let me show you. So we're within, we're within Visual Studio Code right now. We created a new project called QA Demo, right? I want to show you some of the things that you can do with Visual Studio. Just generally, like if you don't even want to be working with the with the command line, which of course I imagine most of us will fall in this category, right? So right here in Visual Studio, I can typically just chat the same way I'm chatting here. I can chat with Claude from this particular interface. So it provides us with a conversational chatbot. A chat session that we can sort of create and have with Claude in this case. So I can basically say something like, can you, I don't know why this is covering my screen, but can you guys see the interface here? Somebody show. Because I know that the font sizes are usually smaller. So I'm hoping that it's clearer right now.
Yes, it's yeah.
All right. So I want to just write a few prompts. Want to write something like, I would like to
I guess you want to say this product should be used to test.
Oh, okay. Don't worry. So one thing about this is that your conversations, or rather your texts, don't have to be correct. AI can actually figure out using the keywords what you're really trying to do, right? So that's something to keep in mind. We'll experiment a little bit more. I just want to quickly write this so that we can get a good sense of what this is capable of doing. So I'm saying that you should recommend more MCPs that may come in handy. So this is going to be just recommendation. And one thing I wanted to also tell you guys is that there are multiple modes. So there is the planning mode. So if you don't want the AI to generate any code and you just want to ideate and plan with the AI, you can select the planning mode. And it will just basically, plan with you and do stuff like that with you. So but if you wanted to be able to quickly edit automatically as it is answering your questions, you can put it in the auto edit mode and it will do that as well. If you want to be able to monitor all the edits, you can ask it, you can set it to the ask before edits mode. And before it makes any changes to your code, it would actually ask you first. So that's something to keep in mind. So here it's recommending multiple things that we can do, but I think it's asking relevant questions first. It wants to better understand. So like I said, context is everything, right? So you see that for it to actually, it doesn't know if we are trying to write this test as developers, right? Or we want to, what platform we're testing on and things like this. So it's asking what type of application traits it is it a web application or a mobile app and things like this, right? So, but I just wanted to show us this. I'm going to go back to the terminal now and just find out if our Playwright MCP is actually up and running. So it's not even seeing it right now. So I think I need to exit this. So sometimes when you make changes like that, you need to restart Claude session so that it can pick up the change. So now I think it's found new MCP server found. So it's found the Playwright MCP server. I want to know if I'll be willing to give it permissions. Right. So let me just select the first option. So let's check to see if the MCP server is up. Okay, it's connected. Nice, nice, nice. So now we can begin our experimentation. I don't want us to go too far without doing this very fun stuff. So now I can just basically say, I can use, instead of writing text like this, right? I can do something like this. Voice, I can basically use my voice instead. So I want you to see if you can find out if any MCPs are running right now for this project. What MCPs are available for use within this project? Please find out and let me know. So that was all done just by talking to the stuff, right? I hope you guys captured that.
Yes.
Yeah, so you can see it's telling me that we have quite a few MCPs here. It's saying that it found out that Playwright is enabled, and it's basically referring to this configuration here, where it has enabled and all of that. Then there's also other places where you can find more information. For instance, the extensions here will tell you which servers are actually available. So these are all okay. I don't know why it's not. But you see the ones that are available for installation and things like that on this side. But let me not bore you with too much details on that. So yeah, I just wanted to show you the capability of using voice recognition. Or voice note taking to actually just prompt the AI. So you don't always have to type everything you want to do. You can just basically just ask the AI using voice recognition. This is only possible right now that I know of within Visual Studio Code, which is why this ID is very, very cool. Right. So you can just basically prompt, just by talking to the AI. And because it is just the keywords that matters, the AI can figure out what you're trying to really say and then, work on that. So now to our interesting thing. So what we wanted to do was to say it should go ahead, explore that website, and then maybe write a test plan for us, right? So what I'm going to write that as a prompt now. Where do you guys prefer? Should we work within Visual Studio here, or should we work on the terminal? Which one do you prefer?
Within
Just
Visual Studio. Thank you. The chat.
Okay, Visual Studio. All right, great. The chat. All right. So, all right. So, can you explore? Let me just tell you. So I'm going to copy a link to a website, right? I'm going to paste that in a moment. But what I want you to do is to go on the website, like carry out an exploratory testing of the entire workflow. No, or let's stick to the landing page for now. Carry out an exploratory testing of the landing page, and maybe you can also explore the login feature as well. What I want you to do is after carrying out this exploratory testing, come up with an exploratory test report that we would then later use to create a test plan for testing both the landing page and the login feature. So it's going to ask me to copy that, paste that website link. I've just done that now. So can you see that I was able to capture everything that we said? I didn't have to type anything. Don't you think that is cool? By the way, it has launched the website already. Let me show it. It launched it on my second screen, but I will pull it up. I would pull that into this place now. It
So
launched.
actually, sorry, I also want to ask that so while working with AI, is it advisable for us to use a production environment while using it? Or we can just stick to staging environment?
That's a very good question. So to answer that question, what I'll say to you is that what level of information are you willing to? And I guess that's the final bit that I was going to cover, right? So, how much do you trust the AI? That's the first question. And then what level of sort of information are you providing to that AI, during whilst testing? So what kind of data is your test data? Are you providing real life data and things like this? And I think it all comes down to, your data, the kind of data protection policy you are adopting for that particular project. Then the other thing again is, are you willing to have test data on those environments? If it's so there is not AI doesn't do anything that is separate from how you would normally do your things in real life. So if you're testing, typically you would mostly test on maybe your staging environment or your QA environment. You will not likely test unless there are specific scenarios where you want to see if, let's say in a case where you don't have a pilot environment that clearly mimics your production environment, and you want to test certain things on production just to be sure that it works as expected, right? You'll find cases like that where maybe instead of doing it yourself, you can ask an AI to do it on your behalf. But for me, there are certain things that in my own use cases, right? I can trust AI only to an extent, right? And so it is that extent that determines how much access I'm able to give to it, or whether to use it or not use it in certain environments.
So
So
are you
that's
saying you use a pilot environment or you use a staging environment because you are still in between?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that if you want to, when it comes to testing, mostly it will be done
No, I'm
on.
talking about you as a person. Like,
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
Um, it's on a need to use basis. So it depends on what I'm trying to do or what I'm trying to achieve. Let me give you an instance. So if I am working on a project where we are working, I mean, the data is sensitive, right? And, you know, data could mean that maybe we have like some kind of social, I mean, like national security data or health data, right? I would not use an AI to sort of test things like that at production, right? I could use it in my staging environment, my QA environment during development, but not on production. Because real life data, people have their real life data on such environments. I wonder if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I got that. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I think the guy might be done. So one thing I wanted to highlight is the fact that broke this down into multiple tasks, right? Also, the other thing I wanted us to see, let me close this because this is not where it's working from. The other thing I wanted us to see was how it's transversed real time, how it was transversing this particular site, going through multiple pages, doing all of that stuff. But again, one good thing that we can at least see are the screenshots. So let's see. So it took the screenshots, right? After it had logged in. Let's see the landing page first. Okay, yeah, this is the landing page. So it came here, right? They explored this, they explored the login. He went to the tab here, and he did this with the Playwright MCP. So ordinarily, without the Playwright MCP, although Claude comes with a web browser, I mean, that's a web browser too inbuilt, but not as explicit. It wouldn't have been able to perform this without the Playwright's MCP. So it's the Playwright MCP that gave you the ability to be able to explore all of these pages, right? So you can see it went to the sign up page, it validated the sign up, right? Then it also went to the dashboard as well, right? Now, this is the report that it
Sorry,
has
which
for,
means sorry, Adele, which means in a
sorry,
situation whereby the cloud AI encounter maybe an error on the website, it also shows on this screenshot. It also displays like it provided a
yeah,
screenshot on this page as well, I think.
yes. And you can ask it to do much more, much less, depending on your prompts. So you can ask it to capture all error scenarios. And one thing I was going to say is that, which is what I'll show you in a moment. Before you go, it's always good that, we spoke about context. It's always good that you prepare some kind of context documents to create guide rails or standards around how the AI actually behaves. So let's say you want to make sure that you are very, very, careful with, you don't want the AI to only exhaust all the happy parts. You want it to carry out validation whilst it is doing the exploratory testing, for instance, that we just did now. You could easily say, make sure that you test all possible scenarios. In fact, concentrate more on non-happy parts or like error scenarios than you would even focus on happy parts. And it's going to do exactly what you're saying. AI is only as good as the person who is prompting it and what it is asked to do, basically. Someone wants to ask the question. I'm seeing a hand raised.
Yeah, ideally, just to remind you of time, I think we should be
Okay,
planning to
yeah.
round up.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I think we'll wrap up in a moment. Let me just see if I can. Okay, let's see. Let's review this together. Um, sorry, one sec. So this is the exploratory testing report that we just got from this, right? So you can see that it has an executive summary. And again, the only reason why it's writing it in this empty file is because we haven't said it should generate, we spoke about formats the other time. So if you wanted a different format, it can also provide a different format for you as well. So, but it covers the executive summary, what you find in the header, and so on and so forth. It's a very long document, so I don't want to go through it exhaustively. But let's quickly do something. So let's say, based on this, let me just use this. This is faster. So based on the exploratory test report, I want you to come up with a test plan for testing trade sale, basically. So for us that likes to do like 7 or 8 jobs, you found a multiplier effect here. So like AI can help you get your job done. I mean, it can help multiply your abilities to get stuff done in time, maybe another 30 folds than you will be able to do ordinarily by yourself. So these are some of the advantages of actually using AI. Okay, let me stop here. Actually, it will generate the results in a moment. Like I said, it's a bit slow, but it will generate the results in a moment. But whilst the result is coming up, I'd rather we start taking questions now because we've overshot the timeline already. If you have any questions at all, please go ahead and ask me.
Okay, good morning. Good morning. Thank you for this insightful session. Okay, just I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, okay. Because of the session, you kept saying playwright MCP, playwright MCP. I don't know. I was just wondering, can we do the same thing using Cypress?
That's a very good question. So Cypress also has an MCP, right? But even if we don't, if without using the Cypress MCP, basically, you can prompt the AI to actually write you a full, automated Cypress test script describing, sort of testing a particular feature, a functionality, or an entire application if you want. That's something that you can do today very easily. I mean, if we had time, I would have shown you how that can be done.
Particularly the exploratory testing, the one what you just showed us now. Can we do this exact thing?
I mean, like, let me just do
Claude.
that instead of just even,
Okay.
I could
Okay.
show you. That's not going to take, it's take about roughly 10 minutes and then you have the entire house stopped up. Let me just stop this and say, okay, let's get that done. So,
Hi, Dylan, can you hear me?
all right, yeah, go ahead with your question. Go
So
ahead with your question.
the same flow you just did now for this web app, I'm wondering if this is the same process I would take to execute this on a mobile app.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Hang on first. So, so if you want to do this on mobile app, the first thing I'd say is today, how do we test mobile apps, right? One of the most popular tools is Appium, right? Or Appium. And Appium actually has, and for you to do that, you install Appium locally on your computer. Then, depending on what you're testing, you have to install a couple of things. I think I can't remember what it's called now, but more like add-ons or extensions for your automation. Then you have like you have what's it called Android Studio for Android apps and Xcode for iOS apps, right? Now, every single thing can be done by just basically prompting, you know, um, Claude to do that for you. So you can just say something like, okay, go ahead and install. But the most important thing, and I think that part I kind of missed it in this session, is to provide context. Context is everything when it comes to AI. Ideally, you start off by, writing a Claude MD file or a entry level, an entry point context file. And that file will contain instructions on basically what your project entails, like a summary of what you want to do. So you can say something like this is a mobile app sort of test script called test suite that will contain automated tests for this mobile app. And these are the technology stacks. It's going to be using Alpion, the Java or maybe TypeScript sort of programming language. So you specify everything and the beautiful thing is you don't have to specify everything by yourself. You can just tell the AI to write a Claude MD file or a context MD file containing, all the basic things that you think your project will entail. Appium, blah, blah, blah. You specify, I'm going to be using a simulator, for instance, instead of an actual mobile app. And of course, you need to connect to Xcode or what's it called now? Or the Android Studio. Once you specify all these instructions, it's typically the same thing as what we've been doing since morning. It would generate all the test cases that you need for you very easily. So let's say I wanted to tell it to do something similar, but just for web now, say, please generate test cases for login using Cypress. So basically bootstrap this project, scaffolding all the Cypress files I need, and generate test cases for login using Cypress. So you see, I want questions to keep coming in, but I just wanted to show you an example, and I would ask it to do the same thing with Appium, but then like maybe I could give it an arbitrary mobile app that will be testing, and I'll tell it I'm going to get it all the build that it needs for that particular test, and you see it will also do the same thing. But yeah, any other questions?
Yes, sir. Sir, good day. Good day, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good morning rather.
Yeah, yeah.
My question I want to say, it's still appealing. Please, after this class we have now, please, can we just have a brochure or a step-to-step guideline on the platform? And again, what kind of tools is better or best for us to use in doing it? If it's better, you can adjust it. You can add it with a video. It will be okay, a step by step, because everybody does not learn fast like others. Is what we still need to go
Standard.
time with time to understand, because what I understood here now, the AI this thing is very, very large. It's very, very large. So it's
Yeah.
not just a one day thing. We can just learn everything at once. Please, I'm just appealing if you can paste it there once, so we can like do some practice on our own personal time, like try to rehearse what we have learned. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, sir, are you there?
The slides will be available to everyone after this call. I'm just not sure how that will be shared. But like I said, I'll discuss it with QA Tech Bro and then see how we can make that available. So let me see if I can show you what we currently have so far. This is a bit slow, but you soon start seeing. So let me see. Okay, it's still analyzing. It will actually scaffold the entire stuff. So okay, I think there's an error here, and that can typically happen actually. If But if I was to say the same thing here, it would be faster. Because again, one thing to keep in mind is that the models are usually different. So this is Opus 4.6. It has the ability to, and I think this is a bit of a complex topic, but again, there are multiple models and different models have their own capabilities, right? Opus 4.6 is the largest model and perhaps the most intelligent model that Anthropic actually has at the moment. So it can carry out more complex tasks than things like Archis can carry out. Archis is usually fast, but Archis is usually fast, but not as. So there was a call that came into my phone. I apologize. All right, so I wonder if we still have more questions. Do we have more questions?
So, good day, good morning.
Hi.
So,
Hi.
mine is not practically a question, it's just an appreciation, because from the beginning, I've been like, I've been engrossed with the way you teach and the way you carry us along from the theoretical part to the practical aspect. It really shows that you are grounded, and I really appreciate that. So, I just want to appreciate you for your time and for your section. It is really, really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for that. Sammy, you can go ahead. I see your hand is raised.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, from my end, I want to know how were you able to use the cloud AI on the terminal?
Okay, it's a very, very simple process to be very honest. But I think the first thing you need to do is set up an account on Claude. So I wonder if I'm able to show that real quick. They're just a few steps. So let me see if I can get you a walkthrough. So this is Claude, right? If you went to, because I'm logged in right now and I wouldn't like to log out, I'll rather just say you could go to you can even just ask here on Google and say, how do I set up? So you see, it's suggesting it wants to know if it is in Mac OS or Windows. But let's just say terminal generally, so that we can see the multiple options that are available. So there are some walkthrough videos actually that you'll find online that is quite useful, right? But most often than not, you find out that you need as a prerequisite Node.js installed on your computer, as it is it's the Anthropic model itself, the Anthropic CLI itself is essentially a Node.js package, right? So you will most likely install following this directive. So once you have Node.js installed on your computer, you just basically run this command here. When you do that, to initialize Claude, all you need to do is just type Claude, this command on your command line too, and then it will open up the same interface, the one that we have up right now. Just opens up this interface and then you can start using it. But I'll also advise that maybe you take like all this, there are so many crash courses on Claude, like 30 minutes. You see some 30, 15 minutes, then you setting up Claude, things like this. It will be very helpful because it helps you to sort of, get started very fast. I wonder if that was helpful in any way.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. So I just wanted to quickly show us like someone asked about Cypress the other time. So here are the Cypress files. You can see that it's already generating end-to-end tests for, okay, it hasn't added anything here yet, but it has installed node modules. We have a package.json file ready with a test script here, although I'm sure it's going to edit this in a moment, right? So by the time it is done, it would have written, let me see, there are not, okay, it has to even start generating the files. So can you see, this is I just told you to generate. My apologies, I was speaking, I didn't know I was muted. Yeah, my apologies, I had a bit of an issue with my internet connection, so I was off for a moment. This is just wrapping up this session. I imagine that, you've done justice to, some of the questions that were asked when I was away. And so basically, this is just, and yes, I wanted to also mention that please do not, try to overexert yourself or, you know, um, exhaust yourself by just trying to consume as much information as possible. Take it one step at a time. I think the first thing to do is to get familiar with the idea of, the fact that AI is here already, right? And LLMs can be very helpful in your day-to-day activity, right? This is just a sort of session to show you what is possible, but it doesn't mean that you need to get to this point or start using AI at this level just yet. You can start just like Fagbaz mentioned. You can start with, using, ChatGPT for learning purposes, right? Or Claude or any of those guys for learning purposes. As you learn and you become very strong at your core area of skill. You remember I said that the AI is only as good as the person who is using or prompting it. Your skill set, what is going to be relevant in the future isn't your ability to carry out mundane tasks. No, it is instead your ability to understand the end-to-end, process of a particular domain. Basically, your problem-solving skills, your ability to truly understand the nitty-gritties and the rules or the codes of conduct or the basic way of carrying out that particular endeavor. And then now utilizing the tools, your ability to also utilize the tools to have that done in record time. Those are the things that will count. So if you're not very strong on the fundamental principles of quality assurance just yet, then maybe this is not the first thing to focus on. Focus on understanding, first of all the various types of testing that exist, how to carry out, tests. What does a good test, what does a good sort of test case or a good test suit look like? What does a bad one look like? What's the test plan? Things like this. You need to understand how to test an application. Who are we testing for? What are we testing for, right? What's a good application? What does a good application look like? You need to understand the principles of software testing, first of all, before you start thinking, how can I use AI to, double my or to triple or even multiply my efforts or my, my productivity. So that's what we should focus on. There's a content on the slide that I wanted to share, the last part that says that, the takeaway is that AI is a productivity multiplier, not a replacement for your skill, right? You can start using AI tools today if you wanted to. Do not forget that, we spoke about, the basic 101 principle of prompting, which is to provide context, explain the task, and also explain what format the output will look like. Always verify AI's outputs. This is one subject I forgot to mention, that AI has the ability to hallucinate. You can trust, but make sure that you verify the outputs, right? AI bridges the gap between dev and QA. So you should use it for collaboration, right? Then this is not as important. There's one subject I wanted to bring up. But anyway, the most important thing is to say that the AI is only as good as the person who is prompting it. So you need to make sure that you have that skill, right? It's not going to save you if you don't have the skill. You look at this here, it says you still need to understand the fundamentals. So basically, that's what I've been saying. AI amplifies your skill. If you don't know what good code looks like, AI wouldn't save you. So this is very, very important, and this is something that we should keep in mind. So thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you very
So,
much, Mr. Ayodele.
nah.
Welcome.
Yeah. To be honest, I really enjoyed this session. And before you guys ask for the video, I already said to myself, I need to go get this video and watch one more time. Sincerely speaking, I learned a lot, and I'm going to start implementing some of these things I've learned. And we have one humble request again, because I could see the excitement in everyone. We really enjoyed your section. So the request is, can we have more of this, at your timing, convenience? We could just pick another time, take us through another AI part or two. Yeah, I'm
Sure.
sure everybody will support of that. Awesome. Thank you very much.
We can
Yeah,
do that.
so yeah, guys, once again, let's appreciate our speaker for today. Yeah, we're supposed to use 1 hour. Even me myself, I couldn't stop him because we could just keep on going on and on, but we need to put it to a stop and continue some other time. So again, if you still have questions, we have the WhatsApp group. You can drop your question there. All our mentors that are on the group as well. And one more thing, let's share our learnings, on social medias. Tag me, tag your speakers. Yeah, I'm also going to share mine. Yep. All right. Thanks, everyone. And let's
Thanks,
have
guys.
a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye, everyone.